Most Americans who bought an electric car in the last few years believe they made the smart financial move. They did the math on gas prices. They counted up all the oil changes they would never have to pay for. They looked at those electric utility rates and compared them to filling up a tank, and they thought they were finally beating the system. That belief is wrong, not because EVs are bad vehicles, but because the math almost everyone is using is missing the biggest number in the equation, and by the time you realize what that number is, you've already signed the paperwork. It is the biggest mistake Americans are making with their cars right now, and it is getting more expensive every single month. Here is the mistake, and let's be precise about it right now. Millions of Americans are buying electric vehicles on the assumption that EV equals savings. That assumption, when you test it against what independent researchers actually find when they track the full cost of ownership, does not hold up. AAA research found the overall cost of owning an EV is 8% higher than a comparable gas-powered vehicle over 5 years, not lower, higher. Over 5 years of driving, the annual cost of driving a new electric vehicle is just over $600 more per year than a similar gasoline vehicle. $600 a year, every year, that nobody told you about when the salesperson was walking you through the charging cost per mile. The EV did not save you money. The EV cost you more. And there is a specific reason why, and that reason has a name in accounting, and it is about to get worse. That is the thing we are going to track today from beginning to end. Before we get there, here is the question that should be sitting in the back of your mind. If electricity is genuinely cheaper than gasoline, and EVs genuinely need less maintenance, how is it possible that the total cost of ownership ends up higher? The answer to that question is what almost every EV advertisement, every news segment, and every online calculator is designed to prevent you from asking. We will get there. But first, let us understand why the savings story was so convincing. The electricity argument is real. It is not invented. Over 15,000 miles a year, a gas-powered car costs an average of $1,255 in fuel, while an EV costs an average of $546 in electricity charges. EV annual maintenance costs come in at around $949, while internal combustion vehicles average $1,279. Those are genuine differences. You genuinely do skip oil changes. The brake pads genuinely last longer because the motor handles most of the deceleration. When someone tells you they are saving money on fuel and maintenance with an EV, they are telling you the truth. They are just not telling you the whole truth because they do not know the whole truth. Nobody showed them the third column in the spreadsheet. The third column is depreciation. Like all cars, the biggest cost of owning an EV is the drop in its value as it gains age and mileage. This is not a new concept. Every car depreciates. But EVs depreciate faster, and, for a specific structural reason that has nothing to do with the quality of the vehicle itself. The 2025 AAA Your Driving Costs report indicates that, due to higher depreciation and finance charges, the EV segment is now the most expensive overall vehicle type to own. Not one of the most expensive, the most expensive. Across every category in the study, across medium sedans, compact SUVs, medium SUVs, and pickup trucks, EVs come out more expensive than their gas counterparts once you account for the full picture. The fuel savings and the maintenance savings are real, and they still are not enough to overcome what is happening to the value of the vehicle from the day you drive it off the lot. To understand why this is the case, you need to understand how depreciation actually works. When you buy a car for $50,000 and sell it 4 years later for $30,000, you have lost $20,000. That $20,000 loss is a real cost of ownership, just as real as every tank of gas you bought. It just does not feel like spending because it happens silently. You never write a check for it. It accumulates invisibly in the background, while you are congratulating yourself for not paying for oil changes. And for EVs, that silent cost is running larger than it is for equivalent gas vehicles, for reasons that go beyond normal market dynamics. Here is the data that makes the depreciation problem concrete in a way that is hard to ignore. Think about someone who paid $50,000 for an electric vehicle in 2022. By 2025, that vehicle might be worth around $25,000. That is a 50% loss in value over 3 years. A comparable internal combustion vehicle bought for the same price in 2022 would typically retain more value during that same period, losing closer to 30%. The same vehicle purchase, same price, same time period. The EV owner lost roughly $10,000 more in value, silently, while they were busy calculating how much they were saving on electricity. The reason this happens is structural, and AAA identifies 2 specific mechanisms. First, EVs carry higher purchase prices than comparable gas vehicles, which means the absolute dollar value lost to depreciation is larger, even at the same percentage rate. Second, and this is the part that should concern anyone thinking about buying right now, there is reduced demand for used EVs, which drives down resale prices further. As AAA notes, that reduced demand is at least partly driven by consumer uncertainty about long-term battery reliability. Buyers in the used market do not know what they are getting with that battery pack. They do not know how many charge cycles it has been through, how it has been managed, what degradation looks like inside that specific pack. And because they do not know, they pay less. Which means when you sell, you get less. Which means your depreciation loss is bigger than you planned for. Now here is where the story changes from something you could argue was just bad timing into something that is structurally getting worse. There are 3 specific trends that have accelerated in the last year and a half, and each one puts additional pressure on the EV ownership calculation. They all run in the same direction. None of them are good news if you are deciding whether to buy a new EV today. The first trend is charging costs. The core argument for electric vehicles has always been that electricity is cheaper than gas. That is still true, but the gap is narrowing. Electricity prices for charging electric vehicles rose to 16.7 cents per kilowatt-hour, up from 15.9 cents in 2024. That is a move in the wrong direction. Gasoline prices have significantly decreased, while electricity prices have slightly increased. Although EVs still offer fuel savings, this does not sufficiently offset their higher ownership costs. Consequently, EVs are now more expensive overall across all vehicle categories in the study. The moat that was supposed to protect the EV economics is getting shallower. The headline claim of cheap charging was built on a set of price relationships that are shifting. The second trend is the depreciation curve, and this one is genuinely surprising if you have not been watching the used car market. Used EVs now average $34,821, within just $1,300 of the $33,487 average for used gas vehicles. That near parity is unprecedented. For context, the used EV to ICE price gap was over $10,000 as recently as early 2023. Let that sink in. 3 years ago, a used EV was worth $10,000 more than a comparable used gas car. Today, it is worth basically the same. That collapse in the used EV premium represents a massive destruction of value for everyone who bought a new EV during the early part of this decade, expecting to sell it for a premium later. The people who paid $70,000 for a luxury EV in 2021 and 2022 are looking at resale values that would have been unthinkable when they signed those contracts. The third trend is the one that hit like a switch being flipped. The $7,500 federal EV tax credit expired on the 30th of September 2025, and nothing has replaced it. September 2025 was the final month for claiming the federal tax incentive for EV purchases. With the expiry of the tax credit, Edmunds data revealed that sales spiked during September, but cooled significantly in October, as the average transaction price of a new EV climbed to $65,021 from $60,167 the previous month. Almost $5,000 added to the average transaction price in a single month. The $7,500 subsidy that was making EVs look cost competitive was part of what was making the math work, and now that subsidy is gone. The average price of a new electric car was $58,124 in September 2025, still higher than the average of $50,080 across all new car purchases at that time. Before the tax credit existed, before it made EVs look cheaper than they were, the underlying price differential was always there. Now you can see it again. This is the moment to bring in the second piece of the cost calculation that almost no one accounts for when they are making the decision. We have been talking about depreciation as the structural problem. But there is a related risk sitting under the surface of every EV ownership experience, and it only becomes visible after the warranty period ends. That risk is the battery. The battery pack in a modern electric vehicle is not like an engine in a gas car. An engine is a mechanical system made of many components, each of which can be individually repaired or replaced at a manageable cost. A bad head gasket is expensive but fixable. A failed injector is replaceable. The repair cost is bounded by the cost of the failed component. An EV battery is different. It is a single integrated unit that functions as the engine and the fuel tank simultaneously, and when it needs to be replaced, you are not replacing a component. You are replacing the most expensive part of the entire vehicle. In 2025, a full Tesla Model 3 battery replacement at retail typically runs about $11,000 to $18,000 installed, depending on pack size, labor rates, and whether you use Tesla or a third-party EV specialist. For the larger models, the numbers are higher. Replacing a Tesla Model S battery through Tesla can cost $15,000 to $24,000 or more depending on capacity and model year. Now, the counter-argument is immediate, and it is fair. Battery replacements are rare. That is true. The data from Recurrent Auto, which tracks a large pool of EVs in the real world, puts full battery replacement rates at roughly 2.5% of vehicles. Most Tesla batteries will outlast the useful life of the car itself, so the average EV owner is unlikely to face this cost. But here is the question that the warranty expiration makes urgent. What is the probability-weighted cost of that risk when the warranty is no longer covering you? An 8-year, 100,000-mile battery warranty sounds generous, but someone who bought a new Tesla in 2017 is outside that warranty now. Someone who bought one in 2018 is approaching the limit. The used EV buyer who purchased that 2018 Tesla without a warranty is holding an asset that could require a $15,000 repair bill at any time, with no insurance against it, in a vehicle that is currently worth maybe $22,000 on the market. That is a different financial calculation than the one they were sold. The structure of this risk matters because it directly drives the depreciation problem we identified earlier. Used EV buyers know this risk exists. They price it in. They pay less for used EVs because they are uncertain about what is inside that battery pack. And that lower price you get when you sell is your share of that risk, transferred backwards through the transaction to the original buyer. The original buyer, who was told that EVs are cheaper to own, ends up absorbing the cost of a risk they did not know they were taking on. This year's AAA analysis shows that the total cost of owning and operating a new vehicle is $11,577, or $964.78 per month. And for EVs, that number is now higher than for gas vehicles across every category in the study. That is the headline that almost nobody is publishing, because it contradicts the narrative that has dominated EV coverage for the better part of a decade. The industry sold EVs on a savings promise. The independent data, from an organization that has been tracking vehicle ownership costs since 1950, and that has existed as a consumer advocate for safe mobility since 1902, says the promise does not hold. Here is how you should be thinking about any major vehicle purchase going forward, regardless of powertrain. The sticker price and the monthly payment are not the cost of the vehicle. The cost of the vehicle is the sticker price minus the resale value, plus every dollar you spend on fuel, maintenance, insurance, and financing over the years you own it. Everything else is marketing. Run the full number before you commit. The largest single cost in any vehicle purchase is not fuel. It is not maintenance. It is depreciation. And depreciation is driven by what the market will pay for your vehicle when you try to sell it, which is determined by supply, demand, technology obsolescence, and perceptions about long-term reliability. EVs are currently losing this calculation, and the trend lines are not improving. If you want low fuel costs and low maintenance costs without the depreciation risk and the battery liability, Consumer Reports' annual reliability survey found that hybrid vehicles, which combine a gas engine, electric motor, and battery, have 15% fewer problems on average than gas-only cars. Hybrids have been refined over nearly 3 decades. The technology is understood. The resale market is stable. The battery packs are smaller, less expensive to replace, and not subject to the same uncertainty that depresses used EV values. A conventional hybrid is not a compromise. It is currently the most cost-efficient form of personal transportation available in the American market, measured against the full ownership equation. The final rule is the most important one. Do not let anyone sell you a vehicle by showing you only the fuel cost and the maintenance cost. Those are the two numbers that are most favorable to EVs. They are also the two numbers that, according to AAA's 5-year ownership study, get completely overwhelmed by depreciation, insurance, and financing. The savings narrative was always built on a partial ledger. The full ledger tells a different story. Was it really cheaper? The electricity bill said yes. The full ownership cost, measured independently over 5 years, says no. And the 3 structural trends that have accelerated since that data was collected: rising electricity prices, collapsing used EV premiums, and the elimination of the $7,500 federal subsidy, mean that the question deserves a harder look today than it did when most of those buying decisions were made. The vehicle that was supposed to save you money may turn out to be the most expensive car you ever owned, and the most expensive part of the deal was the part that nobody put in the brochure. If this kind of analysis is useful to you, subscribe. There is more where this came from, and none of it is what the industry wants you to know.